So, everybody, welcome back. Today, I am so excited to have my wonderful friend and also someone I just look up to so much, Paula Kerger. She is the CEO of PBS. Thank you, Paula. And I have to, so Paula, I'm going to do 2 seconds to introduce you from my perspective. But first, I just want to say, for those of you who don't know, of course you know PBS, but PBS is basically there are 330 stations. 67% of US households watch PBS. Every month, 42 million people are involved, whether it's TV or digital, all the things. This is what Paula runs, and she does an extraordinary job. I can't think of anybody who would do a better job than you, Paula. I'm serious about it. And so I just want to, if it's okay, I want to introduce you from my perspective. It's not your typical bio, it's how I see you as a leader. So,
Okay.
so I'm on the foundation board, and what I see is a strong leader who has terrific values, but also has this like huge heart. And the combination is kind of unbelievable. And so we all follow lockstep behind Paula. I mean, Paula, I don't know if you know that or not, but we are your believers and we
Mhm.
love what you're doing and how you give back through PBS as a leader.
Thanks.
And you've built PBS into a wonderful organization that affects millions, as I've just mentioned, millions and millions of people who wouldn't have access to the kind of wonderful things that you do. So thank you. I hope you're okay with that, but I had to say that because that's how I feel about you. And that's what I am fortunate to get to see up close. So,
Thank you, Sue. That means a lot to me.
well, you deserve it. And thank you. So, Paula,
Yes.
tell us, like, when was that moment when you needed to bet on yourself?
Yeah.
And there
I
could
mean,
be
I think,
many, but yeah, go ahead.
right. No, I think that's what I was just going to say. I think for all of us, there are many moments when you look back on your, professional career. I think there's also moments personally when you decide you're going to bet on yourself and put yourself into a position that really tests your comfort. And I think so many of us hold ourselves back because we either get comfortable in a circumstance, actually, even sometimes when that circumstance doesn't really work out that well for us,
Mm.
but it's easier to stick with what you know than pushing yourself out there to the unknown. And I always liken this, especially when I talk to young people, about this whole idea of, and I've never done this, by the way, of what it must feel like to jump out of a plane with a chute,
Mm.
not just on a whim. But, when you think about it, you don't have to do it. You could stay comfortably on the ground. But, to me, you don't get there by yourself. You usually have training before. You don't just go up on a plane and jump out. It must be absolutely terrifying that first moment when you're sort of leaning on the edge, and then you let yourself go. Chances
Mm.
are you'll hit the ground. Chances are it will be an extraordinary, exhilarating experience. You may never want to do it again, but you will never go through your life wondering what if. And so
You
that's
know,
so that's always what I think about. So I think in my own life, when I look back, there have
mm.
been many moments when I've really had to make decisions. And oftentimes I've been in a comfortable space. And it's like, do you then believe in your skill and your possibility enough that you're willing to put yourself out there, recognizing all the risks and so forth? And a lot of people think that that big moment must have been when I came to PBS, and that was a big moment. I had never been a CEO. I was coming into an organization that I knew pretty well, that had a lot of things that were exciting about it, but also a lot of issues. And I believed that I had the skill to help the organization move forward. But for me, the
And you
larger
did. Yes.
risk but for me, the larger risk was when I was working at a station. This is our station in New York. And I had been in run role. I had come up I had been a fundraiser and I'd worked in administration, but I was the head of development for the station. And the then president tapped me to become the station manager and COO. And for me, it was changing everything that I'd done before. I suddenly was responsible for overseeing people who had been peers. And I think for many of us who are in organizations that then move up, it's a place where you find yourself a little alone because people that you used to hang out with and you used to be able to really let your hair down with, you can't really anymore. And some of them were really great, some of them not so much. And
Mm.
so I think for me, having the confidence to believe that this was something that I could do. Because I remember the first conversations. It's like, oh, I don't think so. I'm sort of happy with what I'm doing. And he said, no, I really think that you are the right leader. I've been involved in a lot of strategic planning and other things with the station. And I moved into it, and there was a lot of bumps along the way. Actually, having going through that experience helped me when I got to PBS. When I got to
Mm.
PBS, I knew some of the people not tremendously well. I had worked in my previous company for 13 years. I knew everyone really well. I had a great relationship with a lot. They threw me a very big party. They made a video. I mean, it was great. And then I came into a place where people were like, yeah, when you see what this is like, you're going to not last that long. And, so having the confidence to move into the CEO role, to do the things that I felt needed to be done, but to lead in my way. And I think
Mm.
that's the other thing that I think people struggle with in sort of betting on yourself is betting on yourself means that you are yourself. And I
Mm.
see many times people go into roles and they feel like they have to emulate someone that they have seen that they perceive as being a leader. I have always been me. People sometimes meet me, spend a little time talking to me, and say, "Really, you're the president of PBS?" Because I just always believe that you lead with the person that you are. You can't make that up. You can't fudge it. And I think that being able to have that, belief that the person, my whole self, is the organization.
I love that you said that betting on yourself is being yourself. And I was trying to, in my introduction of you, say that you're very authentic. You're confident in who you are in a good way, in a way that you're doing it for the right reasons. And I also love how you talk about, jumping out of a plane. And, because I remember being at a job for 10 years and just
Yeah.
at the end, I stayed too long. And, but I wasn't ready to take that risk. And so how you just got it within yourself to like say, you know
Well,
what, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to jump out of that plane. Like, what was it that,
well, I think part of it, I'd love to say I just had this resolve.
hmm,
And, obviously it was in me, but I also had people around me, including my husband, who has always been a tremendous supporter of mine. He grew up with a mom who had been widowed. He was only 6 years old when his father died, left behind six kids. My husband
hmm,
was the youngest. And at a time when women were not welcomed into the workforce, could not get a credit card. And I'll coming back to that story in a second. This is why my husband, I think, is the greatest feminist that walks this earth. And
in competition with my husband,
yes,
Michael.
I think
So,
so. I think so. And she really struggled. And she got a job working in hospital administration. She worked at night so she could put she could be home when her kids went to school. And she earned enough money and she went to the bank to get a credit card. And the loan officer at the bank said, "Do you have an uncle or a brother or someone that can co-sign for this? Because we cannot give you a credit card." Women were not allowed to get credit in their own name. My husband, who was 10 at that time, co-signed for that credit card. That's how she
Stop
got
it.
her first credit card.
Oh,
He
come on.
forgot that story. And years later, he had been taking care of his mom. This was towards the end of her life, and he was going through all her bills, and he saw a credit card that had his name on it, which also happened to be the name of his father. And he said, Mom, you had this credit card from Dad? And she said, Don't you remember this story? She said, That's you. So, I mean, just think about it. Think about how far we've come,
Yeah.
as women, but also think about what that experience was for him. So he always really believed in me. And there were many times when I would second guess myself and just think, well, I don't know. And he always said, You can do this.
I love
And,
that.
I look for mentors to have around me that also, support me. We have to support each other. That's why I feel really strongly that whatever place you are in your life, you need to look around and see the people that are coming up and lift them up too. And
And
if
I
you
think
run in,
I think you're saying not based on gender, right? That
no,
it's like
men and
we're the
women.
great, well, that's right.
I'm talking about men and women. And
Yeah.
I also will tell you that, some of my great mentors were men.
Mm.
Actually, some of the people
Yeah,
that
me
were
too.
challenging me to me were women. So it's not gender based. I think that, but I do feel this deep obligation to young people coming up. We all need someone to lean on.
Yes.
And I think that having that in your life is really profoundly important to it's rewarding. It's rewarding to be able to know that the wisdom and the experience that each of us has had in our lives, we're able to pay back. And I feel that very keenly. I'm so grateful for all the people that I've worked with over the years that gave me a chance, particularly those that gave me a chance when I wasn't quite sure myself, that stood behind me when I, wobbled a little bit, because that happens to all of us, and
Yes.
that really celebrated in our success. And that's what we need to do for one another.
I love it. And you know what, Paula? That's what makes you one of our nation's great leaders. I'm serious. So thank you so much for everything you do for all of us and for leading the way.
And I'm grateful to you. This is like a mutual admiration
Mm.
society here,
Well,
because Sue is such an extraordinary leader, and which leads me to the other point, so whatever we do in our day jobs, again, this is the other thing that I talk to a lot of people coming up. We also owe to the communities we serve. And so being actively engaged, in your case, I know you're active in Philadelphia in so many ways, serving on the PBS Foundation board. I myself serve on a foundation board, history board of the Smithsonian. You get involved in things because we all, I think, have an obligation, as Fred Rogers used to say, to be a good neighbor. And
mm,
so I think that that extends forward. So being able to lift each other up and support each other, both in a one-on-one mentor relationship, but also to get involved. And I've talked about institutions. That also means coaching Little League, coaching
yes.
soccer, being actively involved in community.
So,
Yeah, it's there are all these moments. I think our life is littered with
yes.
and
Yes.
but
Yeah.
look, you and I both know so many people that end up sort of stuck because they're afraid of, that's why the airplane analogy, I don't even know how I came up with it. I
I
came up
love it.
once about jumping out of an airplane, and I just use it a lot. Kids get it right away. It's like, oh yeah, and that's, I mean, because it's just, I don't think a lot of people, I think everybody thinks that they are the only ones that think this way. And there's the imposter syndrome,
Mm,
what
right.
if they find out? There's that stuff. But I think for a lot of people, they just look around and think other people just are very confident and know, and they just sail forward, and
Yeah,
nobody knows. We're all making it up as we go.
that's
So
right.
yeah,
Thank you so much. You're the
this was
best.
great. Thank you.